There's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather.
Man, this stuff rocks.
Hey there, this is Steve from Intrepid Bloom, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Hour, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bodfather, and as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and huge privilege to welcome Steve of Intrepid Bloom, and he will release their upcoming sophomore album entitled Missing Link on March 10th via WURMgroup record label. And they have released 5 singles off the sophomore album: Above the Storm, Dark Horse, Black Cats, The Roads, and No Turning Back. Those are out right now. And also Missing Link is the follow-up to Intrepid Bloom's EP UnEarth, which was their debut EP. So we'll talk about all this good stuff. So Steve, welcome to the podcast, and how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. How does it feel to have the debut EP UnEarth and upcoming sophomore album Missing Link in the Intrepid Bloom music library at this time? How good does it feel?
That it feels amazing. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of thinking, a lot of planning over years. It's been a process, but to be able to do Missing Link is probably like, I don't know, it's the best work I've released so far, I think, and I think I'm just growing even more. So to be able to continue to do things and to continue to write and to evolve and develop your skills is, it's a good, I feel great where I'm at right now.
Well, new to us and probably sick to you, but like, I'm tired of this. Let's get this on and get it over with. Get these out.
Yeah. No, it because the songs, some of these songs I've had for, one of them is the last song on Missing Link. It's called Farewell Into the Night. It's an instrumental. Probably wrote that like when I was 17 years old. So that's a long time ago, but it's an instrumental, and I was able to figure out a way to incorporate a couple different of my musical passions. I love heavy metal, hard rock, and I also like beautiful music, and I like all kinds of music. But Farewell Into the Night is more of like a instrumental, like a relaxing, beautiful kind of song. And I was able to put that into a heavy metal album, which I think is like, I always like it when artists have some sort of side to that. Like, yeah. It's just something I like.
I love seeing bands who go out of the box and do something, not necessarily traditionally, but just going outside that box. And for you to actually have a song that's been sitting around in your back pocket for that long and to finally make it to an album, to me, that's beautiful. Yeah. I love seeing songs like that you never thought in a pinch of an eye that it would be on an album, and finally it is.
Yeah, you never know when a song's going to come to you. I'd say like the album's kind of a mix. Like there's some songs that I've had, like The Roads was something I had sitting around for a few years. Black Cats came up, pretty quickly. No Turning Back, man, that sat there for years just trying to figure out what to do with it. I'm really comfortable writing music, writing guitar riffs and bass lines and getting the feel for things. The words is something I kind of have to think a little bit more about. So I take a little bit more time with that, and sometimes it takes a little too long, but hopefully eventually everything, finds the right way out.
You have done everything yourself on the debut EP and now the sophomore album. Do you feel you work better that way, or would you eventually want to add people into the Intrepid Bloom band maybe?
Sure. Yeah, I would love to work with other people. It's just never been kind of the right pairing, I guess, or they were the right pairing. Just for whatever reason, things, don't work out. But I felt like for some time that if I wanted to do it, the old expression is do it yourself.
Mm.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna keep working on my stuff, and if I find the right mix of people, then that's great. And I actually do have another band that I like play with, and I do the guitar and I do the vocals in that. They're called Trisonic Soma, and those are a great group of guys. We're just a 3-piece, and so I've always enjoyed playing rock music and guitar and bass, and been in a bunch of bands throughout my life. And I think sometimes you just have to put it on your shoulders and do it. And I from an early age I started like recording on little 4-track like Fostax Tascam type recorders. So I kind of got the bug at an early age. So I ended up always recording my stuff and making demos, and I just kept making new versions of it, and actually recorded pretty much all of the first 2 albums myself. And then I have someone amazing like Ulrich Wild from WURMgroup doing the mixing, like he did on Missing Link, and that's a good thing. So yeah.
Are you eventually wanting to take this out on the road, or you just want to keep it as an in-house project for yourself?
Yeah, I'm open to taking it out on the road, but I have to find the right people, and I'm flexible, but everyone's got their own thing. I'm in southeastern Pennsylvania, so but I would be happy to work with people, but it's just never come about yet for Intrepid Bloom is concerned. I would be open to it. I feel like I could do a good job with these songs live, and I continue to write all the time. So,
do you feel this album has less darker ties than the debut EP? I mean, there's some good songs on these, and there's a lot of psychedelic in these videos, which I dig. But is this less darker ties on this one?
There is. Each kind of album, I don't want to call them a concept album because they're not like. Mm-hmm. But I do have a concept in mind, so like the first one, and they have some similarities in some ways too. I just think for the new album, Missing Link, I was concentrating more on different themes and just trying to, take things in a little bit of a different direction, lyrically, and, I always like to mess around with new things, whether it be different like tunings, different song themes, ideas. I think that's what makes it interesting for me. So, and even, the future stuff that I'm working on, it's similar, but it all has its own sort of little twist.
How long did it take to write and record this album, Missing Link? And I know you had a few in your back pocket to throw in there, but how long did it take to complete this?
I'd probably say, well, I released UnEarth in 2020 in August, and this one officially is releasing here in March in 2023. It's been done for about a year, almost a year, and then it's just been like patiently waiting and trying to plan it out. It probably took about a year and a half, 2 years to put this one together. But I always have things that I'm working on. So I just what I was doing was I was working on, maybe sounds weird, but like, 5 different songs at a time. And I just, whatever I'm feeling, I'm working on that, like whatever the situation is with the guitar tuning, or, which one has fresh strings on it or something. And which whenever I remember the best, that's part of one of my problems is I forget some of the stuff, how I played it. Like I'll do a demo, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And like, what the heck was I doing there? And I spent a little time trying to figure it back out. But yeah, just trying to keep things fresh and try new things is good.
Did the pandemic hurt you though as a musician, or did it allow you to take more time on this new album?
Oh, it definitely helped, right? So I think my life before was, just like everyone else's. You have your grind, your job, your 9 to 5 you go to, and then, whatever you're passionate about in life, you kind of do in the wee hours of the nights and, after work and stuff like that. And that's what I was doing. But once the pandemic hit, I remember just, everyone's pretty much locked in their houses. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go up to my studio here and work. And that's what I did. And, it was a lot of fun. There was no pressure because no one is able to do anything anyway. Everyone's pretty much stuck inside the house. So it was helpful. It's obviously it was a terrible event, but I think for a lot of people, it changed people's lives in so many ways.
Oh yeah.
And for me, it actually allowed me to finish a lot of the work that I couldn't finish, and continue to write, and just gave me more time to do things like that.
And you're right. I hated that we had to go through this. It absolutely sucked. We lost people that we shouldn't have lost. I'll say that straight up and forward. But I have seen and heard so many great albums that came out, during this pandemic. And I was like, all that you had to do was take time. I mean, there's so many great albums that have came out of this,
Time's something that's hard to find. And, so that definitely allowed me to finish up projects and work on new things. And now that life is a little bit more back to normal, like I find myself with a little less time. But priorities shift, projects, change and things like that. So I think I'll always have time for music. It's something that I have always deeply enjoyed, and took a break from it for some time. And it's not really something I would ever want to do again.
What led the track Dark Horse to be the first song released off of this new album? And I know you could have chosen any one off of it, but what led this one to be the one that had to be going out?
That's a good question. It actually came down to, we wanted to release Black Cats around Halloween season. And I didn't want the very first song, to be Black Cats, because I wanted to try to get a little bit of, traction or exposure beforehand. And I was just thinking, well, it's high energy, and that's what I like. And, I played it for a few of my friends, and a few of my friends said that was their favorite one. So it's just like, all right, well, let's roll with it.
Was there a track that you were working on that totally ended up sounding different than it was intended to for this album? Was there one that just kept changing, or no?
Yeah. So No Turning Back was actually, I wrote it. I was messing around with keyboards, and I was like going for like 80s video game sounds. And I was like, I'm just going to write something weird today. I want to write some like video game styled hard rock or something. So I was messing around with the keyboards and, wrote, the rhythm track for it. And then I got together with one of my drummer friends here in PA, and we were playing it, and he just like put a cool beat down to it. So, and then it sat for like 2 years. It felt like the song's like always been sitting around, and I could never figure out what to do with it. And then I added the lead part to it and over top, and it just started to take form after that. So that one really changed, from where it began.
I'm glad you paid homage to the old video games.
Oh yeah.
I'm a Nintendo guy.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
Stuff like that, because I can go back and listen. I can just listen to the song of the game and be like, oh, that's what that.
I mean, the music was so cool in some of those games. The music was the best. And I was like just thinking, and it's something I'll probably try in the future again, is harnessing some like video game sound in with like some heavy metal. And it's not everyone's cup of tea, but at the same time, I like to try different things and keep it all within like the similar genre. It's just different outlets for me and different things to play. I find pleasure and enjoyment in trying some like different style things. It's that creative aspect.
I know these are your babies, Steve, but any track standing out more to you than any right now on this upcoming album?
Yeah, man, I don't know. Actually, maybe Missing Link. That one's like there's like some I want to call it poetry, but it's some of the lyrics are like poetry. They have some poetic parts to it and just like thoughts. And that's there in Missing Link and also Above the Storm.
Was the track listing placement important for this album for you?
Yeah, it always kind of is. Because I grew up in an era where there were albums, and I have listened to so many albums start to finish, and I think there's a beauty in that. There's like a beauty to the actual album, and I understand that's not how today is anymore. And I'm okay with that, and that's kind of why we release things the way that we did. It's better for the artists, I think, to release them as singles or to kind of do a hybrid sort of release. But I think when it's put together, and if someone is actually willing to listen from start to finish, you get a better representation of what the artist was interpreting and trying to convey. And I think there's there's a lot of great albums out there that are that way. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I listened to them, and I like them in part because of the music on it, but also because of the overall project.
Any songs that did not make the debut EP that ended up on this new album, possibly, or no?
No. I have songs that didn't make the initial EP that are still out there, and didn't make the second one either. So I have songs like that have the drums. Have all the guitar and bass, don't have any vocals yet. And I think that's probably what I'm waiting on, unless if I want to go back and change anything. But the UnEarth project was a bunch of songs that I had written over the years. And there was a point in time when I was making that album where this is pre-pandemic, I would come home from work or whatever I was doing and just focus like 3, 4, or 5 plus hours the evening on just writing and getting the ideas down, getting my ideas recorded, figuring out the arrangement of things. And that was how that album was put together, where Missing Link I wrote those after all of UnEarth was done. So that was pretty much, except for the songs I had mentioned that were just like sitting around for, all those years. But the majority of Missing Link was written after UnEarth.
I know you've been playing music for a very long time, but what's the growth you've seen from yourself working on this album compared to the debut EP?
I don't know I've in my life, because I've played for so long, I can tell you that, there's different aspects to being a musician, where I think in my life, I was better at some things when I was 22 than, how I am, later now. And I played a ton of guitar when I was in my teens and early 20s. I could really do some things then that I might not be able to do today. But today I have a better kind of, I think, outlook and perception of music in general. Mm-hmm. And so it's like an evolvement, it's a growth, but in some other ways it's not, it's the opposite. But it does change. As I mentioned earlier, I took a few years off of playing music. Just got too busy with life, I would say. And, I found it again. And that was when I started planning everything out for UnEarth.
Do you feel this time around it's fueled your fire even more as a musician?
Yes. It's weird, right? I pause because it's such a good feeling to release Missing Link. I think some albums are special and in different ways. And this one will always probably be a little bit more special to me than UnEarth was, even though UnEarth was the first. And some of the music that I'm writing for the next album, I have actually 2 albums, or not albums. Albums are EPs. I don't even know what to call them sometimes, but they're short. They're short albums or long EPs. I have two separate ideas that I'm working on. So they'll be unique and special in their own way, but I think Missing Link will always probably be like a little extra special to me.
Now, this album was mixed and mastered by the man Ulrich Wild. How was work with him on this?
Well, he's an awesome dude. He's real. I was always a big fan of the music that he was mixing and mastering and engineering back in the day, whether it was, Pantera, Deftones, White Zombie, I could just rattle off names, but he's really laid back, really cool dude, great ear, extremely helpful, insightful, and it was a great experience.
Ulrich Wild, listen, I want you on this podcast soon. He's a brilliant guy, and like you said, man, he has an ear for music. I mean, it's just he blows my mind on some stuff he's put out.
It really does. He's got a great ear, and he does it his way, and I think that's really cool as well.
Who did the artwork for this amazing album? Because that artwork is badass, man. I'm not saying that because you're on here, but it's actually pretty damn good.
Yeah, the artwork is great. This is exactly what I was hoping for and more. I don't have her last name, but a lady named Jessica did it. Ellipsis Q is the tag that I believe she uses. And she also did an album cover for Trisonic Soma. And we love the album cover she did for that artist. So I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm thinking. And I just wanted to go off like something like Where the Wild Things Were, like kind of like outdoorsy, kind of naturey with like psychedelic, like vibe to it. And that was kind of my approach with this album. And so I was looking into, spirit animals and all this weird stuff, right? So that's why there's those animals on the album cover, and those represent certain things. And just kind of like, like a soul or brain awakening. Like we all have like moments in our life where I guess we think of something and it's impactful to us as a person, and that's what this album was for me. So we wanted something that kind of like could reflect that, and she just did an awesome job.
Steve, what do you hope everyone takes away while listening to these new songs from Intrepid Bloom? What do you hope they get from it, man?
I hope they get something different from each of them, because I think every song is different. Dark Horse is, kind of like a pick me up, like a motivating, sort of thing. There's some like chill out music, which I think is cool. And maybe some people like that. There's some like kind of like chill out, like metal in there too. I hope that maybe like they could like, check out the lyrics and maybe, maybe mean something to them too, and because like there's a lot of lyrics out there that people love, and I always enjoy good lyrics as well. So hopefully people like it.
I know you had a lot of music growing up, and I know you still have a lot of music to this day that you have to go listen to, but do you still have a go-to album or a song that you find yourself going back to and listening to from time to time that you have to break down and go listen to it?
Yeah. There's so many. I grew up really loving Guns N' Roses and Metallica, and the Appetite for Destruction album was one of my like all-time like favorite albums, and so was Kill 'Em All. Those were like the first like 2 albums that like I pretty much got on like tape and CD, and every one of those songs on that album are awesome. Like there's not a bad song on either of those 2 albums. I love Night Train, Guns N' Roses, on that album, on Appetite for Destruction. Four Horsemen, Motor Breath, Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth.
Yeah.
Sheesh. Like just like those albums are just so good, and the musicianship and like how good Cliff was is like he was a beast.
Way ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's for me those are the two albums that just they just have so much good stuff on it, and that those are my two special ones.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned Cliff, the mighty Cliff Burton.
Sure.
Man alive, Master of Puppets. That's my favorite.
Yeah, that's my favorite Metallica album for sure. Orion is one of my favorite songs. Like I grew up, the first song I ever learned to play was one by Metallica. I remember one of my best friend, even I'm friends with him today, was showing me how to do it. And I couldn't even hold the guitar upright. Just put it on my lap and, trying to figure that whole thing out and not screw it up. But, I grew up, learning those types of songs on guitar. And, that was how I practiced. And so a lot of the riffs that I like to play are in that sort of vein, and then I try to like evolve them in my own like unique way if possible. And so there's a lot of inspiration that comes from just those two, just that genre in particular. And that whole genre evolved over the years anyway, right? And and a lot of it applies to me today. There's new artists that inspire me all the time.
If you could be a member in an iconic band and play one of their legendary shows, which band would it be and what show possibly?
Man, I would love to play in Megadeth.
Really?
I'm not good enough. but the jam with Megadeth I think would be really fun. I really like Dave Mustaine and his style of guitar playing. Pantera is another. Just man, like I know Pantera didn't have a rhythm, like for the most part, is always dime, especially on the live stuff. But those guys are just, the connection. The connection that Pantera had as a band, having two brothers playing together, that's a connection that's hard to find. Megadeth, I just find the guitar work to be interesting. And he's out there, and I like that. So yeah, they bring like an interesting aspect to me.
All right, Steve, how can folks stay in touch with Intrepid Bloom? Buy this upcoming sophomore album Missing Link on March 10th via WURMgroup record label. How can they do that, sir?
Yeah, they can go to any of their favorite stores. They can go to the WURMgroup page. They can purchase it there. They can stream it. I got Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So I got all the usual suspects, and people are welcome to hit me up there.
And folks, I will have the link in this podcast when it drops, so everybody can go pick it up and check out all your stuff. Before I let you go, would you care to do a promo for my show, Steve?
Sure. Hey there, this is Steve from Intrepid Bloom, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour. Get out, check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link and our YouTube link, and you definitely want to subscribe to that YouTube link because it'll help me out. Trust me, and I'm over that 1K mark, and I want to thank each and every single one of you beautiful people out there who have done that. Please check out Intrepid Bloom. Pick up this sophomore album Missing Link on March 10th via WURMgroup record label. Steve, thank you so much for doing the interview, and I appreciate your time, sir.
Hey, thank you so much. Great talking with you.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.